Hey, what's up, investors? My name is Devin Moreno, and today I wanted to talk to you about why I think you should do rooming houses or other similar sort of strategies as some of your first investments, going forward into your real estate investing journey. And these rooming houses are generally seen as scary to new investors, and I can understand why. Throwing a bunch of different personalities into a house. I talk about how to manage rooming houses on this channel all the time, but today I wanted to go into the benefits and why I think that you should start your portfolio with a series of these. And we're going to ignore house hacking, although yes, most people get into rooming houses because of house hacking itself, but we're going to go a little bit beyond that. So let's go into it. Some of my reasons on why I think these should be considered in your portfolio. The number one reason is that your first, about 5 houses are probably your most dangerous houses. And that's because the other houses that you own can barely hold up the weight of one house if it stops paying rent. See, if you have 100 houses, one stops paying rent, it's not a big deal. Even if 10 stop paying rent, it's not too big a deal because your entire portfolio can hedge against it. But when you only have 1, 2, or 3 of these things and you pay your own mortgage, well, you're not gonna have a lot of wiggle room for your other houses to hold up the one house that stops paying. Now, keep in mind, it doesn't have to be necessarily an eviction case where somebody stops paying. Maybe it's a tenant turnover. When you turn over an entire single family home, you're turning over all of the income as well. So you now have a month where you're, vetting other tenants, trying to get them in, and maybe you even get it in 2 weeks. It doesn't matter because they're still not gonna move in the next day. They need time to get their families into that house. And so you're gonna be losing that income. You're gonna be losing the income of you, renovating the house, getting it ready for turnover, all of that. And we're gonna go into much more about turnovers later, but essentially, the fact is that your houses eventually will be vacant, and then you're going to be covering 2 mortgages, your own plus that one. And if, God forbid, you have to deal with an eviction, then it'll give you, of course, worse. Whereas a rooming house, you never have 100% of the house as vacant at any one time. Generally, it's only 25, 20% even, and then you still can get your mortgage paid for. Oftentimes, you're at least breaking even with one room being vacant, which allows you a lot of insulation from that risk of going vacant. So that's the first reason. The second reason is because your turnover costs are actually a lot less costly. Essentially, when a normal single family home turns over, you have to repaint everything, redo everything, make sure the entire house is up in tip-top shape. Well, in my rooming houses, I don't have to do that on common areas. Number one, I never turn over a common area because it's always in use. I may once in a while touch it up, but I don't really have to repaint it or anything. So a lot of my major costs, I only have to, just turn over that one bedroom, just repaint that one bedroom, just get that one bedroom fixed up, and then I'm done, good to go. So my costs of actually jumping from one tenant to the next have now substantially reduced, and I'm never 100% vacant. This really helps me in the beginning of my portfolio when I'm the most vulnerable. Another reason is that rooming houses way outperform the cash flow metrics of a single family home. Many of you may not know this, but a single family home, once leveraged out properly, often only cash flows about $300 a door. Something around that, $250, $300. It's not really a lot. Whereas a rooming house will often cash flow you about $700 per door, we'll call it, for the whole building. So with this, you're much, much more quickly able to, scale to maybe quitting your job, or maybe get it where you feel a lot more comfortable with the amount of income to handle the maintenance issues. So you're getting the income you'd expect from a duplex or triplex, but with only the amount of maintenance that you get out of a single family home. Remember, you only have usually one furnace, one kitchen, basically all the most expensive elements. You still only have the same number you would have in a normal single family home. So your maintenance cost is reduced, but your actual cash flow is higher. Another reason for rooming houses is because you can buy more expensive houses this way. So a lot of investing strategies are going to involve you buying sort of Class C properties. You really can't get the best properties because a lot of them are too expensive. The mortgages are going to be so high that you can't actually rent it with just a family. You can't really do it that way. So instead, And there's creative strategies where you can use with vouchers and Airbnbs to maybe make that work. Sure, that's other strategies, but a rooming house is another strategy that allows you to buy more expensive properties in nicer neighborhoods and still cash flow from them. And these nicer neighborhoods generally have higher appreciation rates. So, and remember, your higher appreciation is against a higher end property, which means the actual value is already higher. So 3% of a $500,000 building is going to generate you more returns than 3% of a $150,000 property. And then also your principal pay downs are higher, your tax advantages are better in the sense that you are paying more interest technically, and then therefore, that helps you as far as, the tax advantages and depreciation, all that. Everything just pretty much gets better the more expensive the home is. And so, of course, once again, you can only do this with creative strategies. A rooming house would allow you to do that. Another thing, it is specific more to the rooming houses that I do, but you often can get a really great quality tenant in these rooming houses. I often tell people I can go to any one of my rooming houses at any time and it's always quiet, it's always empty. Why? Because I put young professionals in my rooming houses whom have day jobs and oftentimes make way more money than the actual rent demand. So I never have to worry about rent being paid. And essentially are people who generally don't want to be home. Most people who live in a rooming house are often trying to save money. So oftentimes they're trying to not be at home, be somewhere else. This helps keep the rooming house very quiet, very clean, very safe. I actually love it for exactly the type of tenants I'm putting in these houses, which of course, you don't get those variables as much in a single family home where you have kids, you have pets. In fact, pets are actually one big one that you try to reject them at a single family home is kind of hard. Tenants usually just bring them in anyway and then claim they're a service dog. Whereas in this case, I can always say that one of the tenants are allergic to animals and therefore even service dogs I can reject, I can deny just simply because of a health and safety standard. So that's one advantage. I can keep those elements that usually destroy houses out of my houses because it's a rooming house. Now, many of you might wonder about the personalities that you're going to have to deal with, but this actually is really no more complicated than simply you evaluating, would you live with this person? If you keep saying that to yourself, would I live with this person? Would I live with this person? You're often going to put people in the house who are of a very similar culture. Now, culture is not in reference to race or nationality or heritage. It's just simply the vibe that person gives. Like when you have a bunch of friends, all right, a group of friends, often they're of the same culture, all right? They may not have the same lineage or anything like that, but they just act the same. That's kind of what you're going for, is mostly people who sort of act the same. You also have a lot more flexibility to reject things like couples, something you don't want in your rooming house. You could say just occupancy limits don't allow you to have that. You can get a lot of these things that you don't want in the house rejected a lot easier than you might think. And so really it just keeps coming down to it. You just make sure you buy the house in a location where your target audience would want to live, and then put tenants in whom you would want to live with. And you're often going to find they're all going to turn out to be relatively the same and they all get along. Now, of course, there are a number of pitfalls with rooming houses where if you buy in the wrong layout and if you don't pay attention to how the temperature works in the house and if you aren't paying attention to the size of the kitchen or maybe multiple other elements of a rooming house that I teach here on this channel, then yes, your rooming house will go downhill very fast. So if you're interested in more information on rooming houses, feel free to contact me at my website or in my email, devinmorenoinvesting@gmail.com or .com. It is for devinmorenoinvesting.com. And also I will, I talk about rooming houses all the time on this channel as well. So if you have any questions, let me know, comment below, and I'll talk to you all very soon.